Okay, so you're a rocket scientist.
Awesome. Okay, we just posted a new reel over here on Instagram. By the time you're watching this, it's already up there. Go check it out. Let's go see what we've been doing today. This morning I came in a little early, did a bunch of paperwork. This is my backlog list right now for all the jobs lined up. We're probably 4 to 6 weeks lead time right now before we could even get a job in here, which is good. That's where we want to be. Ivan's been in the shop all morning getting a few pieces ready to strip, so as soon as the sun decides to come back out, we'll be ready to go. First off, he's got this Phillipon Credenza, taped up the face. We're not going to strip inside like we normally do. We're going to get it outside and strip probably, in the next few minutes. The sun's starting to come back out. We're going to decide we're going to do one more, that 8-foot cabinet from last week. We're going to tape up the face on that as well, get that going, and then we're going to jump into stripping. But first, I have 2 more chairs to finish gluing up. I'm going to jump on that right now and come take a look. So last night I glued up the arms. They're structurally tight again. Now I got to go around the entire frame like we did yesterday on the other 6, get all of these loose joints here. But what I want to show you, let me grab one. Let me show you how well these glued up. For one, you could hear it. There's no rattling on the chair anymore. There's no that little that tingy sound of just loose joints. But now all the joints at these sections here are not moving. There's nothing that's wiggling at all. And as I said, we added new sliders. That's going to help a lot too with how it flows on the ground. All of these. All of that normally will sound like this. Let me show you kind of a difference. See how that little hollow kind of tingy sound? That means these are loose a little bit. So we're going to run glue down these joints as well as when we go around the entire chair. This chair's been a little bit different than the other 6. I actually had to use a clamp to hold up here. What I'm going to do is just kind of torque it down a little bit more to see if I could close this before I do the super glue. And I said a lot of times what we're going to do in this, in a lot of instances, we'll take the chair apart, break it, re-glue the dowels with the clamps and the yellow glue, the Boss Dog glue, and then and then it'll be nice and tight. But this customer, we're not refinishing them. We're not bringing them like fully restored. All we're trying to do is get that super glue in here to hold it for another 5, 6, 7 years. Because eventually the super glue will loosen up a little bit too. It's a very brittle glue. Hence the reason I don't like to do this very often. We try to use the normal the normal wood glue for these types of chair glue ups. But like I said, every customer has a budget. Every customer wants a certain thing. I'm willing to work with them on whatever they whatever they have. So that's something you just kind of work slowly, very slow and tedious, because we're trying not to eat up the finish. Little fun fact about the super glue though, that is if you leave it on here too long, it'll start drying, and when you peel it off, it'll take off a layer of the clear coat, meaning you're going to ruin this finish that's originally on here, and we'll have to do a touch up. Then it just starts adding more, more energy, more repairs to the customer's quote, I guess you could say. So it's a very slow process. We'll let that just tack up for a second. That way when I flip it over, always keep an eye out for it to dripping back out the other side. Same thing as when it runs, it can ruin everything. Come in here, I said we'll hit this side again too. And slowly through the next hour or so, we'll get these glued back up, and over there in that pile, we'll probably oil them and get them ready tomorrow. Get it back to the customer, hopefully before the rain happens here in Southern California. I wanted to jump on here again as well, because it's always the last chair that's the most difficult. I went working on it and noticed there was 2 dowels that were broken inside of the front leg. So we had to replace them. I drilled them out. I'm just going to finish drilling out the ones here, get them ready for the new dowels to go in. Let me see if I could turn it and get it in view. You could also see here, because it was loose for so long, it broke this front section, which we're going to add a 3rd clamp as well here once we put the glue inside, to make sure that this all tightens down as well, because all of that will play with the structure and the strength of this piece for years to come. So I'm saying normally this is the type of stuff we do. We use this glue and we'll use clamps, but super glue works good for a lot of a lot of use cases. But for big breaks like this, if you could get like a yellow glue in there, Boss Dog glue, just something, it'll hold up for a lot longer, time wise. Let me see. I already got glue in this guy. Put this one in first. So it's really difficult to squeeze it all in. That glue's giving you a little bit of fight for sure. I'm gonna probably use some clamps and a mallet. Let me grab that and we'll get right back to it. All right, I realized what I was doing wrong. This lower support was stopping me. That's why I couldn't get it pushed in. So, stupid me. We'll get that going first. I'm gonna probably have to squeeze that one. That one wants to fight it a little bit. But you can see right there, the glue is starting to come out. So we're gonna also use a clamp on this top section to make sure that this stays nice and tight as well. I'm gonna have Ivan get off the camera real quick, help me clamp it, and we'll come back once we get it all together. Okay, Ivan and I had the magic touch, and we ended up using 3 clamps on it to get it done right. But I wanted to show you the last clamp. You're gonna see, remember I told you this was loose? Because if we've wedged it, there's glue inside of these holes, it's all gone to all the little crevices. You're gonna see, when I put this on here, you're gonna see a little bit of the glue push out from like that bottom crack. See right here at the bottom now. So now you know there's glue running all down this line, and it's gonna hold up, tighten down. Up here there's a large crack. So as soon as this dries, I'm going to fill this with a little bit of the epoxy filler. Just take out a little bit of that excess glue. No reason to have all of that in there. And then like I said, I'm going to give them kind of like one more tighten down just to make sure that we're secure. We'll let this kind of dry up for a little bit. You can see this arm is also busted. I'm going to take the little buttons out, remove the screws, re-glue these probably another hour. I'm going to let this set up and dry first for a little bit, and then we'll get back to these. Let's get to stripping. All right, the sun is out now. It's definitely in the winter. You want the sun to be out to strip. We'll be in the direct sunlight. It's probably only about 68 degrees, something like that today. So once again, use the gel stripper. Putting it in that direct sunlight is going to help it react and activate the stripper to lift off all of this old finish. And I have that piece of cardboard underneath, so that way if it does drip down, it falls right on something that I could clean up easily. You could already see it starting to react. I haven't already stripped some of this today, and he says it's 2 to 3 passes is what it took. It looks like somebody refinished this not long ago. So usually when the finish is newer, and then the air compressor goes on. Okay, first off, I'm gonna grab my putty knife, and of course we're gonna get back to that Amazon box that we all have. What I like to do is just work it a little bit first to see, see if it's going to come off easily. There we go. Just let the scraper do the work. Don't force it. Don't dig into your veneer. Like I said, this is a thin mahogany veneer, so you can really damage things. You see, all down here is still kind of sticky. I'm going to put another layer on that in round 2. So, because you could always put more, more stripper on it. And this is what we deal with in the winter. Like when it's warm outside, it comes off really fast. In the winter time, you have to actually let that methylene chloride do its work. All right, we got that first layer off. What I always like to do, take a steel wool just to wipe off any excess. And then you can hit any edges or any trim that's on it. So I should have scraped that off with the putty knife, but we'll do it on the next round. So now you can see, okay, that was one layer. It did pretty darn good, but I said this is going to need at least 2, maybe 3, depending on you know, how this one comes out. So you want to apply this heavily as well. Like you do not want to put this on light, because the lighter it is, the quicker it'll dry up, and then you're just putting more on and wasting it. It's kind of what happened, I think, down here at the bottom. It didn't go on as heavy, and yeah, as you can see, it didn't remove all the you know, all the finish. All right, while this is activating and starting to react, I'm going to put a nice, you know, just a light layer on this desktop. This is that rosewood desk that has glass all around it. So this is a $20,000, $25,000 piece of furniture right here. So take a little extra care of it. Don't let it fall, don't let it drop. One of the negatives of working outside like this is that a gust of wind can come and blow this over and drop it. It's happened in the past. We don't like when it happens, so we do everything we can, you know, to keep it from happening. So you can already see that rosewood starting to come out. And I believe this had just a light finish on it, maybe even just an oil. I'm pretty sure just this one pass. You can see all that finish and oil coming off. A lot of that's the oil from the wood too. That in here. Kind of just carefully hit the edges. Let that sit for a second, and I'll come back over here. That sun's starting to come out. You can see that finish comes right off now. So see, there's a little spot there's still a little sticky right there. And you can see the stripper is coming off a little bit more clear now, which is more what the color of the stripper is. So there wasn't much finish up there, but down at the bottom you can see it's a little darker red, and then it starts lightening up towards the top. My guess is I didn't put it thick enough towards the bottom. That's why the bottom half looked the way it did. Now, listen, now it should be pretty much raw wood at this point. I got the steel wool, and once again we're just going to do a nice little wipe down with it. Kind of start seeing that mahogany coming out. Hard to tell. I think I might have to do one more light coat like Ivan was saying earlier, just to get that last little bit of finish off the surface. What we could do too, inside these little corners, I use my brass brush, and that'll help scrub out anything. You only want to use a brass brush. Do not use steel. That will destroy it. If you know anything about brass, it wears down. It's actually a little softer than the wood itself. So this thing used to be probably another half an inch longer. Over the years they wear down, and we replace them. The metal ones will just dig into that finish and destroy the wood. You're not going to be very happy if you do that, unless you want a distressed finish. All right, so I think I got a little bit left here. I might just do a quick light pass, but I'm gonna do this drawer, come back to this drawer again, do the same scrubbing as well. See if I need to put another layer of stripper on. You gotta work carefully too, because remember I had mentioned when we were disassembling the corners, some of the veneer was starting to lift. So you really have to be a little slow, don't go fast. That's how you get these big splinters in your hands. We've had them, they go through the steel wool, then they'll go through these thick gloves right into the palm of your hand. You do that 5 or 6 times, you're gonna realize, I probably should never do this again. And you're gonna work a little bit more cautiously. And just keep working the steel wool till you start getting dry, like a dry wood visible. Only fault with these thick gloves is you don't get a lot of feel from them. You don't get a lot of texture, so you kind of have to just trust yourself, work slow. Always try to go with the grain, but with this steel wool, it's not going to hurt anything if you go across the grain. It just make you have in the sand maybe another 5 or 6 seconds that you got to use the sander on it. But I think this is just going to be good with one coat of stripper. That one's about ready to go. We'll get ready to wash that one. So it looks like I got this guy cleaned up. I'm just going to pick it up, set it back on the dolly for right now. And then when we get a few pieces ready, we could do one batch of washing. Now that I have it up here too, I can see here on the top, there's actually a little bit that was missed. Probably just because we couldn't see it. I'll just put a light bit of stripper in these sections. A little bit there, a little bit there. We could have waited, sanded it out, but if we're at this point, we already have the stripper in our hands. Why wait? It's just going to be more chance that you could pass the veneer. I'll probably just do steel wool on it. Let me grab a new one. Take the steel wool with that stripper. You don't even need to scrape it because it's such a minimal amount on it. And work our way around. Hit these edges. So any little thing that's left can be sanded out, but why risk it? Especially when you know you're dealing with thin veneer. This is European. I think this was built in France. So they used a lot thinner veneer at that era of furniture. American veneer, American walnut, stuff like that you see here now, it's got a little bit of thickness to it. You could abuse it a little bit more, sand it a little heavier, but things like this, you're going to cut right through in a matter of seconds. And this was done, I think, before in an auction. I think the guy bought it in an auction, so it means this was already finished once before I even got it. And that, scares me a little bit too, of what did they do to it, what grits did they use. So we're going to go into it a lot more carefully. Take a little extra care with the first sanding and make sure we don't pass. Okay, now that we got those pieces over there set up, time to grab a couple of the others. These are the doors that were, the rosewood doors you remember from last week that were part of that 8-foot credenza. And this is that Italian Cofemo chair where I was telling you before you could see the original color of that mahogany poking through. So what we're going to do, as with everything, another thick layer of the stripper. And just a nice heavy coat. Don't forget to hit the edges too, because they also have finish. And then we'll actually do it a little bit heavier here, because we think these are a polyurethane, so it's going to take a little bit more stripper and a little bit more time to react. But yesterday we didn't have the same amount of sun. I think we were doing these in the afternoon. So now we're in the direct sunlight. That UV really helps with, the reaction, the chemical reactions of the stripper and the finish. So maybe it'll be a little bit easier on this one. All right, we're gonna let that sit for a second like we did. Come in here slowly. So I think this is an old poly, which is why it yellowed so much. A lot of polyurethanes will yellow like crazy from this era. I don't know why. You can see it's not peeling up the same way. I almost have to scratch it off, which is scary because you don't want to damage the veneer. So as you can see, it's like I'm not putting a lot of pressure. Super thin though too, it's not very thick. This is already the raw wood, but it's just we're gonna take it slow. You can see it's like coming up kind of dry right here. There you go. You can see the side that's been hitting with the sun for a little longer is coming off a little bit easier. You can already see right here, look, this big curve. It's a big scratch mark that wasn't really visible, you know, when we first got it. So taking off the old finish, you're able to see a lot more of the damage. Now you can see, I said it comes off. We'll get that back in that Amazon box. But that old finish that's on that little red section comes off like butter. So you could tell like it was all protected from the little shock mounts that were there. So what I'm going to do, after thinking about it for a second, I'm going to just put another layer on and on the sections here. So that way it reacts a little bit more, kind of soaks in. You can see that, you know, when I was scraping it off, it was really dry, which means that wasn't getting underneath. So we'll just let it sit a little longer, clean my putty knife, and then we'll get on to this guy right here. And same thing here, this comes off really gummy. Let's see, I was leaving it in the sun for a little longer. Seems like it helped, because I remember seeing Ivan doing this yesterday, and they weren't coming off like this. It was coming out a lot more difficult. Same thing, just go slow, because I believe this was a Danish piece, but the veneer on this rosewood is really thin as well. We'll set that Amazon box down. Take the little steel wool, hit the edges. You could already see we've got most of the finish off. There might be a little bit of sealer or maybe just a layer of like shellac or something. That's what you're kind of seeing right now. The darker orange color is still a coat. You see the little bit of wood popping through in these sections here. So we'll give it a good cleaning. I'll get inside of the finger knobs. Get some of that out. You can see now that we're a lot more clean, but you can tell where the raw wood is. Still some of the varnish or the poly, and then whatever the sealer coat was is still there. So we're going to put another layer on. Let this kind of activate again. You see now how we do things. You have to jump around piece to piece. I can't just sit here and watch this react. I'm going to jump around 2 or 3 pieces at a time if possible. And they said in the summer it's different. We don't do it the same way because in the summer this stripper will dry up within minutes. So, and especially in the direct sunlight, we usually work right inside the shop door when when it's warm outside. The last videos I think you saw with me, like it was about 70 degrees, a little bit warmer than today. So we'll let that sit. We'll come back to this guy. Yeah, see, just by waiting that extra few minutes, I'm working carefully around those circles. There's some loose veneer there. You can see like it comes off a lot more like butter. You can see it bubbled up as well here. It kind of starts getting kind of crinkly. That's a big sign that it's polyurethane. Lacquer won't really do that. So I'll jump around, I'll grab that side, and then we'll clean it off. So you can see that stuff comes out, and when you work around the curves, it's a lot more difficult. I could also do it this way as well with the putty knife. Run it flat. That'll help keep me from damaging any of the veneer as well. Because I have I call this the pull method, and then the push method is this our standard, pushing it forward like that. But some instances, depending on what finish you're working on or what type of piece, like this is a curved piece of plywood, we're gonna do this method, you know, at different times. So you can see now it just looks like we have a little piece left there. I'm not going to dig into it too much. We'll just put another layer. But yeah, so let me flip it around. See if this is going to work the same way. You can see on this side though, it's not as crinkled up because it hasn't been sitting in the sun. It doesn't have that same kind of alligator skin appearance. But look what I just did right there. It comes right off. So the sun was doing a little more help to it, but that second layer that you saw me put on definitely helped soak into that finish. Come back with this pull method, get around the curve. So I think we're gonna just need one more coat of stripper, but we're gonna really get it down there, you know, clean it up with a lot of the steel wool. Okay, so now we got it all cleaned up. One more time, I'm gonna put a light layer on this one. Same thing to just kind of get that last little bit of finish off. And you can see we're working back and forth. We're gonna come back and jump on that one next. By the time we're done with that one, this will be ready for me to clean one more time with steel wool. So let it sit. Come back again. Let me get that box one more time. You can still see all that darkness coming out. It means we're getting a lot of the finish off and any kind of the oils that this rosewood has, you know, at its core. You can see it's coming off nice and black. So I think we're going to be pretty good there. Grab another piece of the steel wool. Come in. Just slowly work it. Work it like the good stripper that we are. And in both instances, we're both working for dollars. So it looks like we're going to be pretty good now. We might have a little bit of cleanup, one or two little spots, but it looks pretty much like a virgin piece of wood now. Nice and clean. I can see right here, there's a little bit on this corner. I'll just hit a little bit with the steel wool. That stripper is still there. It's on the steel wool as well, so that little bit of scrubbing gets it off. So try to get it as clean as possible. We'll flip it up. Check the edges, check the back too, to make sure on this one that there's no like stripper dripping from the back side, which it was a little bit from probably rubbing on the table. Come back to this side as well. And just kind of work that until it's all removed, and then it'll dry out and we'll be good to go. We can move on to the next piece. Okay, I got that cleaned off, got all the black rosewood, you know, gunk off. We'll come back to this one again. Do a light scrape, but I'm kind of like seeing nothing. So I think I'm just gonna go straight steel wool. So that way we're actually scrubbing, you know, the stripper on the surface versus just scraping it off. A little messier this way, but you know, you kind of figure it out on the fly. When I was scraping it right now, I still saw some of the residue of the poly on there. But like doing it like this, you're actually putting the stripper onto the steel wool, and it's gonna, you know, scrub and remove any finish that's left too. Now at this point, this is kind of gummed up. I could feel it. Get rid of that steel wool again. Grab a freshie. Just keep cleaning it and keep working. There's a feel to it. You can still see there's a little bit of the gunk on it. Not really something I can show you. It's really a feel test. Like, you just can kind of tell when there's nothing else grabbing that steel wool. That's when you know you're at the raw wood. We know around this curve was the most, so we may have to do one more time around this curve. But everything here on the back surface looks pretty good. And I just got it on my arm right here, and it stings. It happens. Tough skin right there. It's had 20 years of abuse, so that's why we wear these long gloves, to better protect ourselves as best as we can. So around the outside edge as well. Get any finish off of these edges. This one here, we don't have to strip inside. It's raw wood, but as you know, we're going to go in through, sand it, and this all gets stained and finished as well. So it looks really good when it goes back to the customer and to the upholstery shop. We know it'll be finished. It'll be perfect. So you see close to now, I have one little piece here, like one little speck of finish. Everything else is pretty clean. I could tell somebody refinished this before. It may be hard to tell on the camera, but I could see the swirl marks of someone using 80 grit, something really harsh, especially on this curve. I'm gonna have to be really, really careful, when I'm going to the sanding process on this guy, because that's where you will pass the most, is right here on this curve. And now knowing somebody refinished it at some point just means I have to work with somebody else's canvas. Okay, we're back inside. It cooled off a little bit. The clouds came in. So what I'm going to do now, though, is you haven't seen these chairs yet. They're an antique chair. They're going to get reupholstered. We removed all the staples and the nails and all of the fabric that was on here. We went through a couple of these joints at the bottom. We're needing yellow glue. We had those clamped up overnight. And like I said, I'm going to check it right now. I see a little bit of glue that kind of dripped out. We're going to scrape that out while it's still kind of fresh. But just like the other chairs that are behind me, I'm going to go through, use that super glue and run it in any of these little cracks that are slightly loose. It has a few chips up here in the seat. I'm going to fill those probably with an epoxy as well as some glue to just make sure that there's no splinters, and get these tightened up so we can get these. These are actually going to get resprayed and clear coated, so that way we can match these arms again, since they're a little bit faded here on the corner. We're going to do that probably tomorrow. So let's dive in. First, kind of get set up on they have a set of two. What I'm going to do on this guy, though, is you can hear this one here is loose. This one here actually has a whole bunch of glue on it from somebody else's repair. They didn't clean it up. So I'm going to carefully, see it goes all the way up here. It goes up 3 or 4 inches. That one too. So it's like somebody tried to repair it but didn't realize they have to clean it after they put it in. They just put it in and walked away. And it even looks like they should have clamped it, because I see a lot of finish missing here. I'm going to see what I could do. Maybe I'm going to grab a clamp and see if I can push it in a little bit before I start gluing all these guys up. Okay, so now I have my clamp here and a little block of wood, but I also see, now that I've tipped it a little bit, and I'm going to shoot myself in the face, some of this, some more glue on this section as well. I said, it just looks like somebody threw some glue in it and walked away. It's not very well done. What I'm going to do is put this clamp on the bottom. I'm going to use a block on the top, so that way we don't make more damage to this piece, because we're not going to be refinishing it. You can see already, I can already see. So if you watch this gap right here, it's sliding a little bit. Watch that gap, I could tell. Oh, I see what the problem was. It was already maxed out, that's why I couldn't go any further. There we go. Now we can kind of just slowly close it up. Doesn't want to go there. Let me see. Kind of adjust as we need to. Turn it at a different angle and it might be what it needs. There it goes. It's kind of hard to see, but dang it. Well, let me get a second hand and we'll get this clamped up and I'll show you what I was doing. I wasn't able to get that down like I wanted to, but when I was clamping it, I noticed this front dowel was lifting up, and it looks like if I just tap it out carefully, like this, I'll actually just be able to just clean these off real quick, put the yellow glue back in, clamp it back down, and just be done with it real quick. No super glue on this section here. And like I said, it's going to hold it up better. All of these are loose. Like I was saying, that somebody else put them in before, did a horrible job. So first off, kind of get in here, clean out any of the dirt and old glue that's been sitting. And then I can kind of work my way around. Get my mallet and see if, oops, that one fell out easily. Beautiful. And then this one was the one that we found the glue on. So it feels like it grabbed a little bit, so I'm going to have to kind of tap it out a little bit more. All right, there we go. Like I said, it had a lot of glue build up there that we'll go around and fix. Like I said, the chair structurally seems pretty good around the frame. It's a little loose on all of these little 45s, but that makes sense because there's chunks missing out of these, like the little angles in the middle. So that's what I'm going to do. Get my chisel again, wherever I dropped it to. Okay, we got that. Go through and just clean out any of that excess glue on these as well. Set that aside. We can kind of go piece by piece. I might use a little bit of like 100 grit to sand these, all this old glue off. The chisel, this little small chisel won't work. I'm going to probably have to get a larger one. And so there's 1, 2, and then looks like the third piece is still right here. So yeah, there's 1, 2. Which one was the one that was on the? So this is the top. Yeah, so that's the middle one, and that's the other side. So that's the right side. So we can lay that out like this. Get in here and just do the same thing. Clean out any of the excess glue. We'll take it out. We'll blow it all off as well. Make sure that there's nothing left in here, so that way the new glue has something to grab to. Like I mentioned, I'm going to take the little bit of 100 grit. It'll help clean off any of that leftover glue residue. And it's just something really good to bond with as well. Nice fresh surface of wood. Just like that. And that'll sit nice and clean right back inside of there. This one has a little bit more, so I'll probably use a chisel. See if I can get it to break off easily. This is the one that someone added glue, so I don't know what kind of glue they added. Just lots of buildup. Let's just go back and we'll try it with the sandpaper. See if we can just sand it off. You can see that I'm on the last little piece now. Everything here fits real nice. Beautiful. This one has a lot more play, so we'll have to be careful with the glue. But now what we're going to do is kind of get things set up, staged, so that way we can get the chair back on here. Get the glue. I'll probably do this first, actually. Get this glue in these joints first, so that way when we flip it over, we just have to reassemble it onto the chair. Make sure to hit both sides. I'm going to put it in. Yep, it's just a little bit more. There we go. Take your wet rag, clean up any excess too, so that way it stays clean. We don't leave a mess just like that other person did. And we're gonna probably do this 3 or 4 times right now as we put it together. Do it here too. There we go. It's a nice clean. Let's see, pull it out. Like we got a good amount on this side. We need a little drip on this side. There we go. Clean as we go. There's just one step at a time. What I thought was just gonna be a quick little glue up ends up being like a full re-glue of this chair. But it's like the customer was gonna want this. This is gonna last much longer for repair than the super glue. But you also don't want to do more damage than you need to. So if you break the bond, that super glue is going to be, you know, a lot more brittle. This stuff here is going to hold up for, you know, many more years to come. And so now I got the ability. I pushed them all the way down. They're set in place. You're not going to see any of that discoloration, which is where somebody put them back together wrong last time. What I'll do now, I'll put a little bit of glue in these dowel holes so that way it starts taking shape. Do the other side. And then we'll grab the chair and we'll put the glue in all the joints of the chair, and then we have to line it all up, which that's always going to be the most difficult part. Lining up 5 different pieces of the puzzle at the same time. And now for the fun part, getting all of this lined back up at the same time. There we go, hold it in place there. There's 1, 2, 3, there's the 4th and 5th, there we go. And grab my mallet. We'll get everything down with the clamps as well. So let's see. So if I could just put a little bit of pressure on one of these just to hold it in place. And what we do first, we're going to put a block in. Ah, wrong way. Sometimes it's hard to glue things up single-handed. Ivan's outside stripping furniture right now, so this gets trickier just doing it one-handed. Ah, see? Let's see. Maybe we'll start it and put it here in the back. There you go, that'll hold it in place while I kind of get everything set up. Okay, I was able to get one clamp on fairly easy to hold these corners over. As I said, I want these dowels to come up. So we'll start here. And I think we may get lucky enough that it just needs a 3rd one on this back edge. Perfect, we're gonna let that sit while I'm here. Start cleaning up any drippage that we have. Spin it around towards the back. Because the glue can dry fairly quick, so just go around, do a cleanup on it so you don't have any more mess than you want. I think by the time we put this 3rd clamp on, it's going to actually squeeze a lot more, and I think a lot more is going to kind of come out of these top sections. So just trying to stay on top of all of this. Let's try this again for the last time. Hopefully we did this earlier and it was not working in our favor, but we had a lot of movement from the other side. So now let's see. Okay, it's holding it now. And like I mentioned, you can see it's coming out of this section here, which means it's pushing down, forcing out any glue in the excess. I said it's just, nothing really came out of these ones, but there's no gaps. Actually, a little bit came out of this one. But mainly it was this rear section that was the culprit. It was sticking up too high because they didn't clamp it like this the last time. So now that I got it cleaned up, I'm going to carefully pick it up, move it over here in front of one of my fans. This will help. This will help with dry time, especially on a cooler day like today. So we'll let that dry up so that way maybe later today we can go around and check the rest of the joints and make sure that we don't need to run super glue in any of the little fine joints. It gives me time now to get back on that last armchair, get that ready to get it down here so it's the 8th and final chair of that set, and we'll get that done. All right, so now this chair actually was not that bad, minus the broken dowels. There's not that much of the joinery that's loose in all these corners. Mainly it's the dowels like I showed you earlier, and then that one that had the broken, broken slat. Let me get a fresh rag. So that way, that one's all dried up and all the old super glue. So I'm gonna just set that aside and then kind of carefully just go around and just check any of these joints. Like up in here, I can see like there's a little bit of a gap. Let it soak in. This will just ensure it doesn't get loose on the customer in the future. It might take a little bit of glue that gets in there, but it'll soak all the way into the dowels and work its way up and down as it needs to. And like I said, to just tighten it up, guarantee it's not going to get loose on her in the future. So I think I said most of these joints are pretty tight, which is kind of ironic. The worst chair with the broken arm and a broken dowel was actually the chair that was the strongest in every other joint. Like I said, usually these kind of things compound and can get worse, over the years. This one, they may have broke it and it just sat aside, and maybe they didn't use it anymore. So it's like it's one of those mysteries. I don't know why it was busted, but all we know is it came here. We got it fixed. Even the joints here are not even moving; they're not budging. This arm had a little play, which was one of the only arms that wasn't loose. So I'll probably run a little bit of glue in there. So I'll stand up so I can hit these joints here. And I can see even on this first one, there's a small gap. Find those little small gaps and just let the glue, pour it in, let it sit. It'll start soaking in. Wipe it down, do it again. Even like a little wiggle too will kind of help it, kind of find new places to soak into. And I'm not going to activate this yet. I'm going to wait till I get all of them glued up. So the middle one doesn't look like it's going to soak in at all. It looks like it's pretty tight. Then the last one, it's soaking up a little bit. It's just same thing. Just give it a little bit of play. Get in there with your rag with the wax wash. I think the worst part of the joint is up here. So I'm going to put a drip of glue behind it. Just like that. Let that set up just a little bit, and then we'll flip it over and do the other side. So now you can see that I have it upside down. Now I'm able to put the glue on the upper part of the arms, in these spindles, and then the other side as well. We'll check that. Once again, just a light drip of glue. Just let it find any loose spots. And hold on to the chair so it doesn't fall off your table while you're working. And that's probably happened once or twice here. It's not fun to add more work to your already busy workload. Like I said, I could already see there's a few gaps up in here. Like I said, so we'll do that. Kind of just clean it, let it soak in. Next one here. And always make sure, watch the bottom too, just to make sure that it's not dripping all the way underneath. Actually, I think this was one of the worst ones. The other ones only had 1 or 2 that were loose. This looks like it's going to be all 5. Let it soak in. The last one doesn't look too bad. Wipe it clean. And then kind of just reevaluate. I'm going to put a little bit more in this one here. Let it soak in before we do any activating. I'm actually noticing underneath here too at the lower section. I'm going to put a little drip because there's large gaps in it. Those large gaps means there's room for play. So if we fill that full of glue, we don't have to worry about it coming loose on the customer, you know, a year down the road. So now the last step in the process, I'm replacing those sliders. Pre-drill a small hole so we don't split the wood on the bottom of the legs. That would not be good. Try to get it in the center as close as possible. And then we have our boxes of, you know, different size sliders. Go ahead and just, as I said, put it in your pre-drilled hole. Light hammer, tap it in. And I said this will be the 8th and final one of this set. Quick oiling tomorrow. We'll hydrate everything and get them back to the customer. Beautiful. It's ready to go. Done. Then I had one more thing. Remember I mentioned when we had that clamped up this morning, there was a large chunk missing out of there. So I'm going to mix up a little of this Mohawk epoxy filler. I'm going to probably go about 50-50 to try to dial in the color so it gets as close to that as possible. I do not recall if the cushion covers that. I'm pretty sure it does, but I still want to just want to go above and beyond. Make sure that that big chunk missing is not there anymore. So same thing, is getting this kind of mixed up real nicely. Get a nice uniform color. You can see we're in that family. So just going above and beyond for your customer is what's going to set you apart. And that's what's going to get you referrals too. So I've got it all mixed up. Same thing, I'm going to keep this as clean as possible. Play with it like Play-Doh. Get it in there. You want to press it in too so it kind of works its way in all the little cracks and crevices. Let's see. So I can see, like, I want to probably play with it by hand like this. I'm going to let it kind of dry up a little bit, come back with a razor blade, and then I can cut it nice and smooth. You know, and actually my finger, using my finger that time was getting it pretty smooth. So we'll come back, I said, we'll let it kind of harden for 2 or 3 minutes, come back and use the razor blade on it. Beautiful. All right, I'm cutting it close down to the wire. I'm just getting these prepped so Ivan can spray a few light coats of sealer on these today because we're going to tone the arms tomorrow. These will get buttoned up. The 8 chairs are done and drying. We'll come back tomorrow. We'll oil those. Those will get ready to go back to the customer. If we kind of work our way over on this side, between Ivan and I, we've got a good pile of stuff stripped over the last day and a half. There's a few pieces that are behind the camera that are halfway done. We'll finish those depending on weather. So day 19 is in the books. I'm going to finish this chair up, clean it with some wax wash, and get out of here. See you tomorrow.